Hello everyone, welcome to Leverguns 50. Today we're going to be the science channel for a minute. I was watching Mark over at the Center Bar channel, and we'll leave a link to it below. But he was shooting a 5140 sharps, and that thing left a pretty good little bruise on the shoulder. Got me to thinking, does black powder have more recoil than smokeless powder? So right here we have one cartridge loaded up with black powder, and then to the same velocity as the black powder cartridge, we have a smokeless powder cartridge. Now these bullets we got from Target Suit, he sent them over, George from Target Suit sent these 450 grain bullets over. And so this one here is loaded with 100 grains of black powder with a 450 grain bullet, which originally would have been called a 5100 because 100 grains of black powder and a 450 grain bullet. The other one is loaded with smokeless powder to the same velocity. So what we're checking is, does black powder have more recoil than smokeless powder with the same amount of power? So we're going to get set up over here, and we're going to see how far the recoil drags this back on a sled and see what will happen. I've done another video, which I'll leave a link to it, about right here, with when I use full house smokeless loads, and you can watch that video after this one gets over. So let's get set up and see what happens. See if it, and also I'll leave some documentation of Winchester's experiments and what they said as far as black powder versus smokeless in recoil. So we're going to weigh this rifle, see how much it weighs. We're going to do the recoil calculator on smokeless powder with this bullet weight with the velocity, and see what the actual smokeless powder recoil would be. If the black powder slides it any further back, we'll know that it has more recoil. So let's see what happens. Slid back to right here. Okay, we're going to get a mark on this, and then we're going to load it up with black powder and shoot it, making sure that we know exactly how far back this slid, so we know if black powder slides it back any further. Now that we got the mark, we're going to slide it back forward, make sure it's even with the end, make sure our tape doesn't come off. This is black powder. Okay. Well, as you can see, black powder does have considerable more recoil, because there's our mark, slid back to there. Same velocity. So the initial slide back was 16.5 inches. This here slid back 22.5 inches. So 22.5 inches, you got basically right at 7 inches further back. So you had that much more recoil that it was able to drive that back. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to line up. I'm not sure if it takes twice as much recoil to drive it back, 7.5 more inches. Does it take, 20% more? Once this gets to moving, how much more does it take to drive it back? I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can calculate it. But nonetheless, it was 7 more inches than with smokeless powder with the same velocity. I got this particular smokeless powder load out of Winchester Lever Legacy, and his loads were hotter than what a lot of people would shoot in guns back in that day when he wrote his book. So we're going to leave the velocities right here because I don't remember exactly. I know there was 14 something feet a second, 1400 and something feet a second. And so that way you can compare. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the not ballistic, but recoil calculator and see how much recoil this gun has. So we got to weigh this gun, see how much it weighs, calculate the recoil with the velocity, muzzle velocity, powder charge, and all that stuff. And then we'll see how much recoil it should have had. Then maybe we can guess how much more recoil it had. And so let's check that out right quick. Hopefully you can see that. It's on 0. We'll set the gun back on there. There is the weight. Hopefully you can see that. 10.35 ounces. Okay, I found this ballistic calculator. I got the bullet weight right here, the muzzle velocity, and this is of the smokeless load, the powder charge of the smokeless load, and then you have to put in the rifle weight. I just put 10 pounds because it's pretty close. And then this right here gives you the recoil. So it's 20.1 pounds of recoil, which, you know, that's not too bad. That's about like a 30-06. Okay, if you look down there on the bottom, you have a 5110 with a 300 grain bullet. It's doing between 1605 at the muzzle, which is actually, and then it has 1250 at 100 yards. And then it has 1720 foot-pounds. But if you look over here, and if you look up at the top, it talks about smokeless foot-pounds in recoil. It talks about smokeless first, and then over here it talks about black powder, and down here it has 11.5 with smokeless powder and 19.5 with black powder. And I think that's also going to carry on up with the bigger calibers and the heavier bullet weights. So that kind of gives us an idea, and this is something Winchester did back in the day. And as you can see, all of them have more recoil with black powder than they do with smokeless powder. So kind of gives you an idea. Okay, this is pretty interesting. Now if you put 100 grains of powder, same everything else, it comes up with 26 foot-pounds of recoil, which that 6 pounds might push it back 7 more inches. I'm kind of thinking that if the powder burns somewhat slower, it pushes longer on the barrel, allowing it to have more recoil. What are you guys' thoughts? Here's a close-up of that gun. I hope you guys learned something like I did, and we kind of proved that Winchester was right, that the gun has more recoil with black powder than with smokeless. So I hope you guys had a good time. I had a good time. Come back and see me, and God bless each and every one of you. See you on the next video. Man, it's hotter than fried chicken out here.